but this is collapsing. My trekking pole is bowing inwards. Okay, so that's why this side was bowing in. My guy line snapped. It's going to be a fun one. Forecast 55-mile-an-hour winds, rain and snow. Such fun. This is pretty brutal. Just on the walk up here at the moment. So I'm heading up to Great Mis Tor just because it's a relatively easy spot to get to, an easy spot to bail from if I need. Yeah, as I said before, the forecast is supposed to be up to 55-mile-an-hour winds. We've got a break in the rain at the moment, bit of a clear sky behind me, high winds though. The tour is covered in mist, but yeah, forecast rain later on, 55-mile-an-hour winds overnight into the morning, and then snow in the morning, apparently. So my last camp of 2024, and I might get some snow at last. So just checked on my sky watch, we're currently hitting gusts of about 20, constant sort of 16 to 17, so nothing major at the moment. But obviously we've got a fair bit of elevation to go yet to get onto Great Mis Tor, which will no doubt be windier there now than it is here now, but also forecast there to get considerably worse through the night. I probably won't film me setting up tent. I'll just get up there, get the tent up, get the gear in, wet gear off, and get the inside of the tent set up. I've got a new cook system to show you as well, which looks really, really good. I think it's going to be my go-to cook system now. Right, well, I'm glad I didn't film setting that up. It was an absolute nightmare. I've come down to the sort of east side of Great Mis Tor. The wind is coming from the west. The wind is coming from the west. So I sort of ducked down behind a few rocks. It's still hitting it every now and then, so it whips around them, comes across. While I was setting up, no word of a lie, I put a footprint down. So I've got this a 3FUL gear footprint, two-person one. I use it on the X Mid, one person as well, and it's almost perfect. So it just covers the vestibule. But I stood there and thought, okay, which way is the wind blowing? Right, it's blowing that way. So I flipped it out that way to put the pegs in. It then immediately blew straight back in my face, and then it blew back again, and then it blew sideways. It's like, what way is the wind coming from? I really don't know. So, yeah, one of the things, a little bit of a tip with the X Dome, when I set up the X Mid, I basically peg four corners out pretty much as tight as I can do it, and then put the poles in, and then strap them down. With the X Dome, I thought I saw that you should do the same sort of thing, but when I set this up, I had it fairly taut on the floor, so the corners are pulled out quite tight. Then when I put the poles in, the clips actually wouldn't reach the poles. They were being concertinaed down, so I had to release them and loosen them a bit. So if you do get this tent, when you set it up, don't have it too tight on the base when you put the four pegs in first off. I have put my trekking poles in. Again, little tip, when you first set this up, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be leaving the inner in. Obviously you can't then put the trekking pole in the back side because there's no door there. So I just put this up quickly, dropped 3 of the clips, one foot on the head end, 4 clips I lie, 2 either side, and then that dropped the inner enough so that I could reach over, get the pole in. So I've got 2 trekking poles in. Hopefully they'll make a difference. It just depends which way the wind comes from, because it's coming around this tor, so it could go anywhere. Anyway, now I'm going to chill out and have some of my flask of Jack Daniel's honey. I think I'm going to end up sleeping the opposite way from the way that you should sleep in here, and the way that I prefer to sleep in here, because there's a bit of a slope, and I was very limited on choice as to where to go. I'm very close to a footpath. If anyone comes across here in the morning, they'll probably trip over my guy lines, but it's the only place I could find that was relatively flat, wasn't completely flooded, or really in the track and the path of the wind as it comes across the Tor, so it'll have to do. Right, so you may have seen my review of the Fire Maple Petrol G3 pot, which is a 600ml pot, which is fine. It's pretty small, it's lightweight, it's an anodized aluminium as opposed to a titanium, which makes it a lot cheaper, but it's still incredibly light. But it's very, very efficient because of the fins at the bottom of it, the system that's sort of similar to a jet boil. Now, I like that pot. I have found it a bit of a struggle to get wet meals in it, so the actual wet pouches where you've got to fold them and have them fully immersed in the water. 600ml is a bit small, so a lot of feedback went to Fire Maple in recommending a bigger pot system, basically. So they have now made the G2 stove. This is a really nice size. I like the fact that it's not a long 750ml pot like a titanium one, so they're sort of thin and long, which is what I've got as well, but this is short and fat, which means it takes the 230g canisters of fuel as well. So you can put the small 100g ones in, or you could put the larger ones in as well. But again, it's got the same heat distribution system at the bottom with the fins in it, so it gives you protection against the wind and also makes a more efficient boil. Same as the previous one, the G3. You just squeeze that together, got yourself a handle. You got a lid with a rubber gripper on it and an air vent spout. And what's quite nice on this one is it has actually got, and if you can see it there, a pouring spout. And again, that makes a big difference when you're pouring a cup of coffee in the morning, you know, or like I use my coffee grower pouches. Quite hard to get the water into that little gap. But as you can see in here, this fits in very nicely with a 230g can of fuel. So I was worried that 100 isn't enough, and I'm sure it is. I'm not fussed about taking a bit more weight. To me, it's more about bulk and size. So, you know, your big jet boil ones, I find they just take up too much space, whereas it's pretty compact. It's a nice size. I haven't weighed this on its own. I'll do that, and I'll put the weight just there on the screen, just to tell you what it is. And they've also sent me the Green Peak stove. So I've got the Green Peak 2, but the 2 doesn't fit in the gaps in the vents at the bottom because it's got a folding mechanism, so it's too thick, which I showed before. But this one is a piezo igniting 3-pronged stove, and so long as those prongs point to the center, you know, like a star, they're not off at an angle, they will fit in this stove. Pretty much they'll fit in this pot. Pretty much any stove will fit in there, and then you've got a very guarded but very efficient, quick, powerful little setup. So I'm going to get some water boiled, and I've got a pot noodle because, as always, I end up rushing and running out of time, even on a Saturday when I've got nothing in theory to do. Something always happens. So at least I didn't forget anything this time, hopefully. But I'm going to get some water boiled, get a pot noodle. I'll time it. I'm only going to put like 500ml in, and I'll time it and tell you how long it takes. It's about half a litre. That took 45 seconds. It's not too bad in this weather because it is blowing an absolute gale. It just blew my torch down off of the my little magnetic hack of hanging it on the door, which is fine if it's not getting battered by the winds. So yeah, I've got to find somewhere else to put this now. It's annoying. So tonight's video is really going to be about how well this tent stands up to a bit of a battering. You know, it's had a bit of bad press recently, and yeah, that's the same with a lot of tents, especially when they first come out of the market. There's issues, but Dan seems to be addressing them. I have checked the poles on this before I set it up, and there doesn't seem to be any problems with the inner sleeve on the cross pole like Steve had at on Geordie Wild Camper. So you know, I thought if there is, I just wouldn't set the tent up. I'm not going to set it up to fail for two reasons. One, it's just pointless doing that, and two, it's going to break while I'm in it, and then I'll have to just take it all down and go again. So you know, there's a fair wind at the moment. I'll go out and measure it later on, but I know we were getting gusts of 25 to 30 around here while I was getting set up, because I was checking it on my Skywatch. So yeah, this is just really about how well this tent stands up in a bit of a battering. It's fully guyed out. I've guyed out the vent on that side, but I've got it closed. So my concern was that the hook, the loop for the guy out point, is on the top of the vent. So when you have it tight, it's going to rip it open and therefore just open the vent. But it seems to be holding actually. So I was quite surprised at that. I've got it full length, so it's a very, very shallow angle. But I've got, yeah, that's guyed out, the bottom's guyed out, all 4 points around the base and all 4 points around the sides, not just the corners, are guyed out. 2 guy outs, one either side at the top pole, and obviously all the 4 corners as well. So yeah, it's as solid as it can be. I've also wrapped the guy out lines around the poles, just to give it a bit of extra strength. It's not easy that in this wind, because you've got to sort of push the pole in to get it around it, and then it wants to pull it back again. So, but it's done. Trekking poles are up. Sitting here, I've been hit every now and then by, it's hard to catch it on camera, because solid law, you sit there holding your camera all the time and nothing happens. As soon as you turn it off, bang, you get hit by a gust of wind. But looking back on it, it seems to be not really moving that much. I have had to change my hack of the lantern. I've now got it hanging up on the cross beam attachment that goes from the inner to the outer, so there's no way it can come off of that because it's clipped on, as opposed to the magnet, which just it wouldn't take these swinging around in the wind. So it fell off on the floor just in the middle of cooking and boiling water, which wasn't ideal. So anyway, I'm going to get on with my pot noodle and just keep an eye on this. I'm going to go outside in a bit, have a little wander around, see how bad the wind is outside, give it a test. I'll come back to you in a bit. Just popped down to use the facilities. The wind has just suddenly dropped, so I've just gone around to check the guy lines. There's a couple of points where you can see it on here actually, where this, you wrap it around the pole, it sort of pulls back in on itself, so it pulls the cable inside. It's still around the pole, but no deformation. The vent's staying shut, so even though it's guyed out, so I've got it guyed out going a long way, all the guys are sort of full length. Yeah, she's standing steady still. Fingers crossed it stays that way, because it's supposed to get worse. Just finished my dinner and a pack of Jaffa cakes. Just look like I've got glasses on, and I'm lying there thinking, do you know what, I might just get an early night, I'm quite tired. I looked at my phone, checked my watch, it's 6 o'clock. I'm in for a long evening. It's going to be fun. It's really weird because it's like dead silent, no wind, nothing, and then suddenly bang, it just hits the tent. And it's weird, there's no constant wind, it's either nothing or a big gust that hits it, which makes it a bit more difficult to sort of prepare for it, because if there's a constant wind you can see how it's taking it and if it increases and getting worse, but you can't with this. It's just suddenly hits and then disappears. But the weird thing is I'm getting hit on my foot, on my head, and on this side. So the back of the tent and either end of the tent is being hit by winds. They're coming from all angles. So, you know, when you talk about pitching the tent correctly, it's not always possible. It is being hit from every angle, so all good fun. Right, it's 8 o'clock. The wind's coming in fits and starts, really. It's just sort of calm for ages, and then suddenly you can actually hear it coming across the top of the Tor, like a howling in the background, and then a second later, bang, hits the tent. But it's just started raining on time. They said 8 o'clock. Got it right for once. But yeah, so it's just started raining, and it's supposed to rain throughout the night and then snow in the morning, which would be good if it does, but probably won't. I never get snow on a camp. Anyway, I'm sort of laying here just half dozing and half keeping an eye on the tent. Nothing really happened, nothing major so far. A few big gusts hit it, you know, there was a real slam. You could hear it was almost like someone kicked it. But it's holding up well. And I'll bring you back later if anything happens. Right. I'm debating whether or not to do the right thing and bail here. The wind is picking up, but this trekking pole on this side, the wind has turned and it's hitting that side now, and it feels like that trekking pole's going to break. It's just bowing right in. It is just taking the brunt of the wind. Obviously it's higher gusts now than what it was earlier on, and they're forecast to get worse. Now, I don't want to destroy the tent, I don't want to break my trekking poles either. I don't really want to pack up in this, but I'm having to hold this trekking pole. You know, if a trekking pole can't take, this is a 16mm carbon trekking pole. It's designed to fit with the get out gear chair, so if it can take the weight of someone at an angle on a chair, it's a strong trekking pole. It may be that it's just flexing and it's going to be fine, but I don't know, because if that snaps, the sideless tent's going to collapse in, and it will take these very thin carbon fibre poles with it. So I'm not sure what to do. So, you know, if I'm not holding that, at one point I'm just holding it with one finger, you know, just got my thumb on it, and then suddenly I'm having to put my entire body weight against it to stop it from snapping in. I don't know. It just hits out of nowhere. And that's a problem. It's not a constant wind. You can't gauge it. 1 minute. Whoa! Okay, the sides just come in at the other end, foot end. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna pack up and bail because it's only 9 o'clock now, and it's gonna get worse. This tent is not gonna take it. I'm not putting it through it. Shit. I'll see you back in a bit. This side just keeps dipping right in. Literally, I don't know how the poles are not snapping. Testament to how flexible they are. It's coming from this end now, total opposite end of where the wind is supposed to be coming from. And it's bowing this corner straight in. I don't know if the guy lines come out. I checked it, they're buried deep, they're 9-inch eastern pegs. But this is collapsing. Okay, so that's why this side was bowing in. My guy line snapped. So yeah, that'll do it. Right, I've packed up. The guy line wasn't snapped. It had literally come undone. I suddenly thought to myself, it's a dynamic guy line. How the hell would that snap? But it hadn't. It had come undone from that pole, which I could have just retied it up and got rid of the tent. But by that point, I was in the mindset that, you know, my checking pole was nearly breaking with the wind that was hitting the side of the tent. It's now 9:30. So that was at like 9 o'clock. The winds are forecast to increase by about 15 miles an hour. It should be about 40 at the moment. So you're looking at 55 through the night later on. One, I'm not going to sleep. Two, I could snap my pole, snap the tent, I could wreck the entire thing. That's not what I'm here to do. You know, I thought I'd be able to get into a bit more of a quieter place to camp, somewhere lower down and a bit more out of the way of the winds. So my mistake. I'm not going to go and ruin a perfectly good tent that isn't designed to be out here in this wind. So it's not the tent's fault, it's my fault. But lesson learned for next time. It's not worth, you know, risking your life, your health, worst case scenario, or best case scenario, your tent and your equipment, just for the sake of getting out and camping. What I didn't realise was, I've just been informed that apparently this is a named storm, and this is now, I get to camp like every other weekend. This is the third every other weekend there's been a named bloody storm, so I've not been out, because this time I didn't think it was a named storm, and it didn't seem to be that bad, the weather warnings, so I thought I'd be alright to camp. Damn you, God and weather. Anyway, I'm going to head back to my car, hopefully I can find it. And I might touch base with you when I get back with a sum up. Right, as you can probably tell, I'm back in my car. Apologies for any wind noise, I've got the window open because I'm just sweating, it is so hot. So I just wanted to go over something. When I got out of the tent and realised that the guy line hadn't snapped, it had actually come undone. And I use a knot that I use on every one of my tents, have done for donkey's years, never had a problem with it. But obviously that came undone. Whether it was because it was twisted around the pole and it got pulled through, it may have caused, you know, some kind of movement in the knot, I don't know, because the guy lines do seem to get pulled back in around that loop that you put the strap through. Ideally, I'd like to see that strap double the length, so that you can put it through and it sticks out away from the pole, and then you have your guy line connected to it. As it is, it's almost, the guy line is at the same point connection as the pole is where it wraps around it. It seems to be too short to me. But I considered reattaching the guy line and continuing with the camp. But going through my head was that those winds that were hitting the back of the tent, you know, it was literally bending my carbon fibre trekking pole in, and when I was holding onto it, I could feel the power on that wind, and it was only going to get worse and worse. But while I was standing outside the tent, mulling over whether or not to continue, I got hit. I could hear it coming across the top. It's like a tornado, not a tornado, it's like a tsunami. You can see it in the distance, and you're like, that's going to hit me in 3 seconds. It was just like that, and I could hear this wind coming over, and I literally just held onto the tent and it slammed into me and it nearly knocked me over. So I got my Skywatch out, I'll show you a picture of it now, and I just held it up just whilst holding onto the tent one-handed, so I couldn't film it, and it recorded a speed of 46.7 miles an hour. I've just got the picture here, I took a picture of it on. Now, it's supposed to be 10 to 15 miles an hour more throughout the night. 46.7, I'm not camping in that. There's no point in me putting the tent at risk or myself. You know, I've just had to hike back. And it's not a massive hike. I knew that if I had to bail, it wouldn't be a problem for me to make it, but it's not ideal, you know, and if I was getting blown over on the way back, my trekking poles were getting blown under my feet as I was lifting them off the ground, coming back to the car. So it's, you know, it's just not safe, and it's not worth me doing it. So yeah. This is not a fail, this is a successful outing, not a successful camp. But it's knowing when not to continue, and either risk my health, my safety, or my equipment. You know, I don't want it damaged at the end of the day. Anyway, hopefully I'll get out on a weekend with some snow, ideally, and not where there's a named bloody storm again. Oddly, the only time I've ever had snow on a wild camp was about 3-4 years ago, and it was probably 30 feet away from where I was camped tonight. It was on Great Mis Tor. I had my One Tigress TP tent, and it started to snow at night, and I was like, great, I'm going to have a snowy camp, my first ever snowy camp. And it was the night that I forgot to bring my mushroom pole cap for the pole. It's a pyramid tent, a large one. And suddenly the wind picked up out of nowhere, wasn't forecast, and it burst a hole through the top of my tent. The whole thing collapsed on me. I had an alcohol stove on the go at the time, so there's flames everywhere. I was trying to hold that off of it, blow the flames out, and then try to pack up underneath a collapsed tent that was also covered in snow. So that was my only snow camp ruined, and this was my second snow camp ruined, assuming it snows tomorrow. Never know. Anyway, guys, so I can bring you a full camping video tonight, but I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. I enjoyed the hike out and the hike back. It was nice because it wasn't horrendously raining. It was a little bit of spitty on the way out, but it's dry now. It's just really, really high winds, and I quite like a good long walk in high winds. It's nice, it's enjoyable, invigorating, I think is the word. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it as well, and if you did, as always, hit the thumbs up if you're not a subscriber. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Have a great Christmas.